Here's a person who discovered the most important thing in logic, and he invented the concept of the stored program computer, and he did these wonderful things in biology and cryptography and started artificial intelligence. But I don't know anything about this person, and yet here's the key figure of our century, but I don't know him.
Alan Turing was a remarkable man, and all those people who worked at Bletchley Park during the war, cracking the Enigma code, there are still many of them who are still alive, and we owe them a huge debt of gratitude. They made a decisive difference in winning the Second World War. We should praise all of those.
From Newton and Darwin to Edison and Einstein, from Alan Turing to Steve Jobs, we have led the world in our commitment to science and cutting-edge research.
There were 4 stages to Alan Turing's life that we really wanted to reflect in Blink. The first was the nature of spirit, which was a fascination he got with the brain and how minds work. Helen Booth was inspired by the early life and work of Alan Turing, which was indirectly inspired by his school days, where he met somebody incredibly important to him in his life called Christopher Morcom. Christopher Morcom unfortunately died, and that made Alan Turing incredibly interested in how the brain works and how the mind works. He was trying to find a mathematical order for the structure of things. And Helen took that inspiration and tried to develop it into an installation which was made out of strands of thought, which were activated by electrical impulse in the form of light, which moved across the installation within the tower. Then the second stage was a really, really important paper that he wrote, which was called On Computable Numbers. All the gadgets that we have today link back to this mathematical foundation. So what Jessica did was she worked with the computers at Bletchley Park, but also with computer components. So we thought that reflected the early period of his work where he developed On Computable Numbers, which is the basis that modern computers actually still run on today. The third really important period of his life was the war years. All the research that he'd done in the earlier part of his life about building artificial intelligence and computers, he then harnessed to help Britain break the Enigma code. That's the thing he was really, really famous for, and a big contribution to all our freedoms. The piece that we developed to celebrate Alan Turing's centenary is called Intense Colour Movement, which was a collaborative work between a sound artist, Jabina Tinnemans, who developed some unique sounds that were attributed to colours. So we attributed simple sound to blue, a simple sound to red, and so on for 7 colours.
Yo.
Wendy's piece was called Swarm, and it reflected the third period of Turing's life. I think he thought that he'd done enough to be afforded some kind of protection by the society that he'd done so much to protect. But effectively, when he was caught for gross indecency in Manchester, society rejected him and persecuted him. To sort of have a swarm there was an interesting thing, because instead of protecting somebody significant, we destroyed him. So the piece that Sean worked on was actually inspired by the last stage of Turing's life, which was actually quite a sad period of life. He became very, very serious about long-distance running, and he met Alan Garner. They both used to do marathons together, and Sean was influenced then by the chance meeting of Alan Turing and Alan Garner, who wrote the Owl Service, and then he developed a pattern with morphogenesis and the Owl Service plate pattern. And then after he was prosecuted for indecency, he was given hormone treatment, he grew breasts, he was under constant surveillance, and he was unable to think, and unfortunately he committed suicide. So the last piece that we did to commemorate Alan Turing's life was a posthumous piece, effectively. It was for the end of his life. It was called Thank You. We felt that he'd never been properly thanked for everything that he did, so we devised a piece which had a neon epitaph on the key, and then we pulsed thank you in lasers across the harbour in Morse code, which, again, relating to code that Turing broke, we thought we'd send him a message up into the heavens. And to have something which, for me, neon or white neon is very, very attractive, so that the audience were kind of drawn to it like a moth is drawn to a flame. And that just references all sorts of stuff in Turing's life where there were just things in him that he couldn't cover up and he wouldn't cover up, and they were effectively his downfall in the same way that a flame is to a moth.
I felt very warmly about the way he treated Turing. I thought it was a fantastic festival, all sorts of details that I liked, the Morse coding, because it's an important thing behind the scenes there, is that there are so many people out there contributing. As far as Blink's concerned, it did a really good job, I think, of exciting people, making him a familiar object, if you like, a familiar person, that he'd done something really great. I really like that, and especially as what he did helped all these things that have been happening, all these electronic things happening.